Hello, I'm Angela Ross and this is ABC News. Specialty timber operators are worried they won't be able to survive under the Forest Peace Deal, and an upper house member fears by the time legislation reaches Parliament, it will be too late for elected members to have a say on the agreement. Fiona Blackwood reports.
Craig Howard is a fourth-generation sawmiller and furniture maker.
My son's the next generation, that's the fifth generation, and I can see that he may not be in it.
He fears the family tradition will come to an end if 430,000 hectares of public native forests are put into reserves.
I think it's dire straits. If this agreement goes ahead that it is at the moment, I can see potentially there's no business in probably 10 to 15 years.
Forestry Tasmania's modelling says you can basically cut in half the whole industry and by extension also specialty timbers, and to have only 6,700 cubic metres available to businesses such as this is not going to be enough.
But the state government and the Greens say the agreement provides for 12,500 cubic metres of specialty timbers a year.
Which on the analyses I've seen is far more than the actual extraction rate in recent years.
Furniture makers aren't the only ones worried. Legislative Councillor Paul Harris says he's fielding numerous phone calls.
We hope that the Legislative Council will do this deal over. That's the expectation. People think that we can. Well, we can't because of the proclamation into informal reserves straight away.
The informal reserves will be created after an independent report by Professor Jonathan West, verifying high conservation value forests as well as timber supply. Legislation won't be needed until some reserves are made into national parks. The agreement says $140 million in federal funding depends on legislation being introduced by mid-next year. But Paul Harris wants a say sooner.
As a result of the forests being the property of the people of Tasmania, I think it's entirely appropriate that the Parliament should be making some consideration about the informal reserves right now.
None of this flies unless the upper house accept that what we're doing here is what the Tasmanian people want us to do in the first place, and at the same time is reasonable.
It's expected when legislation is introduced, it will face a tough time in the Legislative Council. Fiona Blackwood, ABC News.